Given its somewhat insane longevity, Supernatural ended up committing many, many sins over its numerous seasons. But one of its biggest sins actually happened very early on in the show, and that is the way the series and its narrative turned on one of its main protagonists, Sam Winchester, and started to neglect, ignore, and repeatedly punish his character through a variety of means and for absolutely no discernible reason. On my recent rewatch of the Kripke era, I really started to notice this, so I wanted to explore Sam's initial arc on the series and how Dean's narrative and point of view ended up eclipsing Sam's, to the point of stripping away much of Sam's agency, narrative, and choice. It's so interesting how easily the series forgets about Sam's point of view, considering that the show starts from his perspective. When we begin the story, it's from baby Sam's room as his mother dies trying to protect him. We then flash forward 22 years and meet now adult Sam and his soon-to-be fridged girlfriend Jess, who were visited by the estranged Dean, there to bring Sam back into the family business. It's through Sam's eyes that we are introduced to this world as we hear his account of their childhood.
When I told Dad I was scared of the thing in my closet, he gave me a .45.
What was he supposed to do?
I was 9 years old.
As the first season progresses, it is clearly Sam's story that we're watching, as many episodes center around his guilt over Jess's death, his emerging psychic powers, and his desire for revenge against Azazel, the yellow-eyed demon who killed his mother and girlfriend. Sam's story is given focus and time, and, even more amazingly, Sam himself is granted something which is continuously stripped from him in the following seasons: agency and choice. There are many instances over the first season in which Sam is able to freely voice his opinion and oppose his father and brother. And in the episode Scarecrow, we even see Sam break away from Dean and decide to hunt down their father instead of helping Dean with the monster of the week. Amazingly, this brief separation results in Dean encouraging Sam to go his own way, actually respecting his younger brother's wishes and allowing Sam his own agency, something we would cease to see in the following seasons. The dynamic between Sam and his family feels less domineering in the first season, and we even see Sam influence Dean and enable the latter to stand up to their father John. We see how Sam's influence allows Dean to rightfully call out John's behavior, and the dysfunctional family actually takes some tentative steps towards a healthier dynamic. The first season gives so much focus to Sam and spends so much care setting up his story that it's almost jarring to return to it and realize just how forgotten this initial setup becomes. Season 2 is where the point of view starts to shift, and the narrative clearly starts to favor Dean. It's also the season that starts the slow removal of Sam's agency and autonomy, and that starts at the season opener in My Time of Dying, in which Sam is kept in the dark about John's plans to summon Azazel and separated from Dean by the supernatural veil. The episode is mostly told from Dean's point of view, and at the end of the episode, a clear secret is shared between Dean and his father, shutting Sam out of the equation. A particularly egregious choice in light of what said secret turns out to be.
He said that I might have to kill you, Sammy. Kill me.
What makes this all the worse is that Sam actually confronts his father about what John knows about Azazel and the demon's plans, and John lies to Sam's face, seemingly not trusting his youngest son with information about his own destiny, and instead placing the burden on Dean's shoulders, screwing over both his sons in the process. Sam is left in the dark about his emerging powers and Azazel's plans for him, and much of the narrative surrounding John's orders is told from Dean's point of view, focusing more on Dean's terrible burden than Sam's dark and frankly terrifying destiny, which is such an odd choice given the build-up of Sam's powers in Season 1 and how so many episodes focused on Sam's fears surrounding them. Many episodes which explore the source and danger of Sam's powers, such as Hunted and Croatoan, focus more on Dean's reactions to the possibility of losing his brother instead of on Sam's reactions to his own fate. This narrative shift and intense focus on Dean's fear of losing Sam culminates in Dean stripping away Sam's agency in the Season 2 finale. When Sam is killed during Azazel's final showdown, Dean repeats John's sacrifice from the season opener and makes a deal with a Crossroads demon to bring Sam back from the dead, in exchange for Dean going to hell at the end of 12 months. Sam is pulled back from the beyond, and Dean lies to his brother about his own death.
But Dean, you can't patch up a wound that bad.
No, Bobby could.
When Sam learns the truth at the end of the episode, he is barely given time to process before Dean tells him to suck it up. And Sam's feelings about Dean's deal are squashed time and again as the next season begins. Unlike his brother, who was given clear time and space to rage against the position John put him in when he made his deal with Azazel, Sam is granted neither. Where John's sacrifice was seen as yet another manipulation towards his son and viewed as the selfish act that it partially was, Dean's sacrifice is portrayed as just that, a sacrifice made by an older brother for his younger sibling, and the audience, and by extension Sam, are asked to view it as such. When Sam tries to call Dean on this hypocrisy, he is harshly cut short, his feelings and emotions ignored.
What you did was selfish.
Yeah, you're right. It was selfish. But I'm okay with that.
I'm not.
Tough. After everything I've done for this family, I think I'm entitled.
Not only is Sam forced to be grateful to Dean for his older brother's so-called sacrifice, the entirety of season 3 focuses on Dean's fear of going to hell and the cold, hard fact that Sam is going to lose the only family member he has left is almost completely ignored. In direct contrast to the previous season, which gave so much focus to Dean's feelings over losing Sam, season 3 misses every opportunity to give any focus or exploration to Sam's pending loss. And this is probably the most obvious in the episode Mystery Spot. Ask any fan what the best episode of season 3 is, and they will probably say Mystery Spot, which sees the return of fan favorite character the Trickster, who traps Sam in a Groundhog Day loop where Sam is forced to watch Dean die over and over. The episode is mostly played for comedy, as we are treated to increasingly ridiculous and bizarre deaths for Dean, while poor Sam spends most of the episode flailing around as he tries to figure out what's going on. However, at the core of the episode is the very dark reality that eventually Dean's death will become a permanent thing for Sam, and we even find out that this is actually the Trickster's point, that Sam cannot save Dean and that he needs to accept his brother's impending death. What's crazy about the episode is that one of Dean's deaths does actually end up sticking. We finally see him gunned down in the motel car park, and Sam is forced to hold his brother's body while he dies and then face the horrifying realization that the day isn't restarting. We then see 6 months pass. 6 months in which Sam is grieving his brother, completely cut off from everyone, including their close friend and mentor Bobby Singer, and seeking revenge against the Trickster. We watch Sam become darker and darker in these months, eventually agreeing to a human sacrifice in order to get his revenge. It's a horrific portrayal of Sam's grief, and it could have been an interesting plot thread to revisit over the season. Unfortunately, this opportunity for character exploration and the possibility of seeing things from Sam's point of view is completely passed over. At the climax of the episode, the Trickster sends Sam back in time to the original Wednesday and allows the boys to leave unscathed. While Dean's death is undone, the 6 months Sam spent without his brother still exist in Sam's memory, and this is never brought up again. Once again, an opportunity to explore Sam's perspective and deepen his characterization is ignored. But if season 3 ignored Sam's perspective and trauma and refused to acknowledge how said trauma was bringing out a darkness in him, season 4 somehow upstages it completely and is probably the worst of the early seasons when it comes to the series turning on Sam as a character. The season opens with Dean returning from hell 4 months after his death, and we quickly see the brothers reunite. As the opening episode progresses, we get the setup of Sam lying to Dean and hiding his actions with the demon Ruby, which continues and builds over the entire season and culminates in the blood addiction storyline and Sam accidentally freeing Lucifer from his cage. This storyline had so many roots in the previous seasons, which gave us reasons and explanations for Sam's behavior and, perhaps most importantly, cemented the canonical fact that Azazel fed Sam demon blood as an infant, and therefore, the blood addiction was in Sam's system long before he ever took a willing drop. Then, there was the trauma of losing his father and his brother, the guilt of feeling like he caused his mother's death, his loss of bodily autonomy with the revelation that Azazel fed him blood, and the darkness he had to embrace in order to withstand it, all established in the seasons preceding this one, and giving the show a real opportunity to treat an addiction storyline with nuance and sympathy and show how addiction is not black and white and is often the result of repeated trauma and pain. Instead, the season treats Sam as a secondary antagonist and shows him little sympathy. As early as the 4th episode of the season, we see Dean dealing with Sam using violence and abuse, not stopping to listen to or try to understand his brother. While the season repeatedly hits us with what Dean endured in hell, it completely ignores the months Sam endured without Dean. And Dean never once acknowledges how hard things must have been on Sam or how Sam's previous trauma contributed to his poor decision-making. Instead of holding Sam accountable for his actions, while simultaneously exploring what drove his actions and treating this sympathetically, Sam is outright condemned for going down such a dark path. And it's not just Dean who repeatedly condemns Sam. The angels treat him with disdain and refer to him as
Sam Winchester, the boy with the demon blood.
And this shade of labeling follows Sam even past this storyline.
Sam, of course, is an abomination.
In the very meta episode, The Monster at the End of This Book, which reveals that there is an in-universe book series based on Sam and Dean's lives, the author of the book admits to Sam that he didn't write the demon blood addiction angle into the story as he feared it would make Sam unsympathetic, which almost feels like the show writers talking directly to the audience and telling us how we are supposed to view Sam's very sympathetic storyline. Towards the end of the season, we see yet another violation of Sam's bodily autonomy as Dean and Bobby lock Sam in Bobby's supernatural panic room in order to force him onto a cold turkey detox. Without trying to reason with, talk to, or even attempt to understand Sam's blood addiction, Dean takes away his brother's agency and choice and almost kills him in the process, once again deciding Sam's fate with regards to life and death.
And if he dies, then at least he dies human.
And the worst part of this is that the narrative clearly sides with Dean, turning Sam into the ungrateful and dangerous younger sibling, incapable of making his own decisions and in need of his older brother to come along and pull him into line. Once again, Dean removing Sam's agency is seen in-universe as Dean saving Sam, and Sam is supposed to be grateful. Thank God we got Season 5. It is widely agreed upon in the supernatural fandom that the 5th season should have been the last. And one of the many, many reasons for this is that this season finally hands Sam some agency and starts to show things from his perspective, allowing his and Dean's relationship to evolve and culminating in Sam taking the ultimate control over his body and fate and using his physical and mental strength to hurl Lucifer back into his cage. It's truly the last season to treat Sam so well, and it's such a pity that the show didn't end on such a high note with regards to Sam's characterization. Season 5 opens in usual fashion, with Dean blaming Sam for unleashing Lucifer. But, in a surprise twist, Bobby forgives Sam and stresses that Sam will never lose him. Immediately there seems to be a shift in the narrative, with the show considering Sam's actions and showing him sympathy, and this continues as we see Sam and Dean go their separate ways for a time in the episode Free to Be You and Me. While previous seasons would have mostly focused on Dean, in this season, we get a shared perspective, seeing both brothers without the other and giving Sam a surprisingly sympathetic storyline where he meets another recovering addict who shows him kindness and understanding while also forcing him to face the consequences of his actions without the usual harshness. This switch back to treating Sam sympathetically continues in the episode Fallen Idols, when Sam calls out Dean for falling back on old habits and ignoring Sam's agency. With refreshing frankness, Sam once again takes responsibility for his actions while pointing out events which led to said actions, forcing Dean to realize his part in Sam's downward spiral and the bigger picture at large.
Dean, one of the reasons I went off with Ruby was to get away from you.
What?
It made me feel strong, like I wasn't your kid brother.
Are you saying this is my fault?
No, it's my fault. All I'm saying is that if we're gonna do this, we have to do it different. We can't just fall into the same rut.
At the end of the episode, Dean and the series take a step forward and give Sam some of his agency back, admitting to the faults within Dean and showing more sympathy towards Sam. This trajectory continues over the season, which explores both brothers' fates as the vessels for Michael and Lucifer and treats Sam as sympathetically as it does Dean. As the brothers' arcs move towards their conclusions, Sam is given the biggest amount of agency he's had in years, as Dean, Bobby, and Angel Castiel all acknowledge Sam's strengths and what he's overcome and put their faith in him by giving him the choice of saying yes to Lucifer so he can then attempt to fling himself and Lucifer back into hell.
You're gonna let me say yes?
No, that's the thing. It's not on me to let you do anything. If this is what you want, I'll back your play.
Sam uses this faith and love to fight back when Lucifer takes control of his body, and his final act of agency sees him saving the world by damning himself to hell. Had this been the end of the series, it would have been an incredibly tragic ending, yet it would have ended Sam's character arc in the strongest way possible, by granting him back the one thing that was so frequently stripped from him, his free will and agency. Unfortunately, that was not to be. Now, I am one of those Supernatural fans who only counts the first 5 seasons as the true show, and everything that comes after as a sequel. Unlike the first 5 seasons, which I have watched numerous times and know inside out, I have only watched the rest of the show a couple of times through. But even that is enough to see that the series once again turns on Sam and never quite shows him the same level of sympathy or affords him the same level of agency that it did in Season 5. Season 6 starts by removing Sam's bodily autonomy when his physical body is torn from the cage without his soul. Once he does get his soul back, he's somehow held accountable for actions his soulless self committed and blamed for lying to Dean about not having a soul. This tendency to overblame Sam continues over the following seasons. After Dean is sucked into purgatory at the end of Season 7, and Sam tries to do what the Winchesters promised each other they would do and healthily move on, he is relentlessly blamed for not searching for Dean by Dean himself. And it's eventually revealed that Sam's inaction while Dean was gone led to their friend and prophet, Kevin Tran, being in danger. A fact which Dean repeatedly blames Sam for and reminds him of. Eventually, Sam's guilt over his decisions leads him to try to complete the trials of God, which take a huge physical toll on him and are eventually revealed to be fatal. Sam's acceptance of his death heartbreakingly illustrates how broken he has become due to the constant trauma inflicted upon him and the blame placed on him due to the decisions made as a result of said trauma. Season 9 continues to violate Sam's bodily autonomy in probably the most hideous way thus far, when Dean ignores Sam's acceptance of death and instead manipulates Sam into unknowingly allowing an angel to use him as a vessel in order to save Sam's life. Dean then spends the season gaslighting his younger brother whenever Sam questions the blackouts and memory loss which result from the angel sharing his body. And rather than portray this as the horrific violation of Sam's body and mind that it is, the narrative clearly sides with Dean. And, similarly to Season 3, Sam is expected to show gratitude towards his brother, despite the trauma Dean has caused him with his decisions. This narrative is emphasized the following season, when Sam releases the darkness in order to save Dean from the Mark of Cain. And this action is not only compared to Dean putting an angel into Sam's body without Sam's consent, it's the catalyst used for Sam to fully forgive Dean that action. And while there is definitely a conversation to be had about the Winchesters' willingness to let the world burn for one another, Sam releasing the darkness was not a personal assault against Dean, nor did it violate Dean's autonomy the way Dean violated Sam's in Season 9. By the time we got to the final seasons of the show, everything felt like it was running on fumes, making a completely satisfactory ending to the series almost impossible. But the almost complete lack of care or respect shown to Sam Winchester's character in the eventual final episode of the series was still kind of incredible. Now, Dean, of course, didn't fare all that much better, but he at least got to die in the arms of the person he loved most and then found peace and happiness in heaven. Sam, meanwhile, is handed the most underwhelming life, with a wife and child he barely seems attached to, doomed to live out his days missing his brother before dying a silent, bitter old man. There is no peace for Sam, and nothing in his final story makes any sense, given his characterization over the previous 15 seasons. As said before, Supernatural committed many many sins over its long lifespan. But I really do think that one of its earliest was the way in which it seemed to abruptly turn on its initial protagonist and constantly rob him of his agency, his bodily autonomy, his free will, and his sympathetic place within the narrative. And with every rewatch, I become more and more convinced of this.